Good evening. Welcome to the webinar, The Secrets for Purchasing Your Dream Apartment in Israel. You can write me in the chat box on your right if you can hear me well, so I know that everybody's hearing me. Okay, great. During the conference, you could write me your questions in the same box, and I will be happy to answer any question you may have. I suggest you to close programs like Skype or other chat programs because they can disturb our connection. We will wait 1 more minute to let all the people connect, and then we will start. Okay, I see that lots of people are arriving, so we can start. Just a moment. Okay. I will tell you some words about me. My name is Debbie Shor Eliassi. I was born in Italy, in Milan. Now I live and work in Jerusalem. My mother tongue is Italian, so I apologize in advance if my English is not so fluently. I am an architect. I graduated in architecture from the Politecnico Institute of Milan in Italy. And I gained international work experience in architectural offices in Milan, Barcelona, and Jerusalem. I assist my clients in planning houses, apartments, offices from the first steps of the project to the end, including the small details. You can see in the next slide some pictures of my projects. I have been working as an independent architect for 5 years, and I am specialized in green architecture. I work for Israeli clients as well as for foreign people speaking English, Italian, and Spanish. In my work with foreign people, I noticed how it is difficult to look for the right apartment for people who don't live in the country or who are not familiar with it. And worse, people are really afraid from renovating an apartment here in Israel. For this reason, a couple of years ago, I wrote a series of tips on these topics. Maybe some of you had read them. And now I decided to organize this web conference to give you all the necessary information you need to make the right choices in harmony and quietness. Today's presentation will focus on how to look for an apartment in Israel, and we will be looking at the subject under the following headings. Firstly, we will see how to look for a second-hand apartment, and secondly, we will discuss about purchasing an apartment from a general contractor. The first point deals with where to look for the apartment. There are different ways to look for an apartment in Israel. If you are already here in Israel, you can check real estate advertisements on the local newspapers like the Jerusalem Post. You can check the internet. There are free English websites like Janglo for the Jerusalem area and Tanglo for the Tel Aviv area, where there are real estate sections. You can also post your own advertisement and ask to be contacted from the sellers. I'm sorry. Real estate agents. Here you need some good advice. The advantage to work with a real estate agent is that they have access to the data banks of all the apartments for sale. But, unfortunately, Israeli real estate agents are often a bit aggressive. You have to be very careful and not trust everything they say, and verify everything with the right professionals. I will tell you a short story that happened to me when I was looking for an apartment for my family. The agent took me to visit an apartment of 4 rooms. When we arrived, I noticed that there were just 3 rooms. So the agent told me that the kitchen could have been moved to the living room and connected with it. This way I could gain 1 room in the place of the kitchen. Then the agent told me that all these works would cost about 10,000 shekels. I know that this price is not enough to cover 20% of the kitchen's cabinets. The agent stopped smiling when I told him that I am an architect and have some experience in the field. Before contacting the real estate agent, I suggest you to decide what the requirements of the apartment you want to buy are. For example, in which neighborhood would you like to live? How many rooms do you need? Which floor do you want the apartment? If you need a balcony or a lift? what your budget is, and so on. If you are precise, your search will be faster and easier. I know some good and honest real estate agents in Jerusalem and in Tel Aviv. If you want, I can send you their email or telephone number. It's important to know that the real estate agent commission is 2% of the apartment price, and so it's important to consider this expense when you calculate your budget. Okay, the apartment visit. I suggest you to arrive some minutes before the real estate agent and use this time to analyze and study the building. For instance, the building facade could be a precious source of information. If you see a lot of air conditioner, as you can see in the picture, probably the building is not well insulated or his exposure is not good. For these reasons, an apartment in this building probably requires a high use of air conditioning with very high costs in the electricity bills. I also suggest to have a look around the building. For example, a transformer like the one you see in this picture is a bit frightening in my opinion. If you have any question right now, you can write me in the chat box, and otherwise we can move to the next item. I wait 1 minute to see if there are questions. Any question? Everything is clear? Okay, so we can go on. Okay, now we have to choose the right apartment. So let's speak about exposure. When you choose the apartment, it's very important to verify the sun exposure. The best exposure in Israel is north-south, and I explain you why. You can see in the scheme that the radiation level is very high in the summer on the facades facing east and west, and on the roof. You see here 5.07, 5.07 west, and on the roof 7.67. On the facade facing south and north, the radiation level is much smaller, as you can see here, 248 and 262. On the contrary, in the winter, the solar radiation is very high on facades facing south and low on facades facing west and east. You can see here these values in the second row. From this data, we can deduce that the best exposure for an apartment in Israel is north-south. This way, we can heat the apartment in the winter through big windows facing south. The low winter sun passes through these openings and heats the house. All this is possible, of course, if the house is very well insulated. In the summer, the solar radiation is relatively low, and the sun incidence is very high on surfaces facing south. So, if you put shadings overhang on the windows, the sun won't enter the house, as you can see from this sketch. On the contrary, facades facing east and west are the worst. They are the hottest in the summer and are not so useful to heat the apartment in the winter. How can we check the apartment exposure? First, you can have a look at the solar panels around. They usually face south, or with a simple compass. And nowadays, you can also use the compass application of your smartphone. What you can do if you really like the apartment, but exposure is not good enough? There are some good solutions. First, you can improve the wall or the roof insulation. It is possible to add an extra insulation layer on the internal side of the wall and on the ceiling, as you can see in these pictures. Here, I added an extra insulation layer in the internal walls. You can see in the next picture the same. Here you can see the insulation, and this stage is before putting the chalkboards to close the insulation. Secondly, you can change windows facing east and west with well-insulated ones. In Israel, you can find windows made up of material like PVC, fiberglass, wood aluminum integrated. In this picture, you can see PVC windows. And also, there is a special glass called low E, that means low emissivity. This glass is very intelligent and clever. It doesn't transfer heat from outside to inside and is particularly suitable for windows facing east and west. I prefer not to install it on south windows because, as we have seen before, the solar radiation from the south is excellent in the winter and not so hot in the summer. And last but not least, you can add different kinds of shadings, as you can see in the next picture. Just a moment. The picture you see now, there is a wood aluminum integrated window. You can see the wood inside and the aluminum is outside. And in the next slide, we can see different kinds of blinds. Everything is clear? Okay, we can move to the next issue. What are the right questions to ask to your real estate agent? First, you have to ask how much are the building bills. In Hebrew, it's called Va'ad Bait, and the municipality taxes, the so-called Arnona. Ask him if the apartment is heated. In case it is, with general or with independent heating. If it is general, check how many hours a day it is on. You can also ask the neighbors. Ask if there are solar heating for the water. This will bring a big saving in electricity bills. Before signing the contract, you have to confirm the following things. The apartment, as well as other facilities such as a garden or a cellar, must be registered at the land registry. In Hebrew, it's called tabu. Make sure that additional structures, such as balconies and extra rooms, have been built legally with the proper permits. In Hebrew, they are called heter bniya. Your local municipality, the moatza or irya, will help you with these checkups, and you can either hire an appraiser or an architect to help you. These checkups are essential in order to avoid problems that might cause huge expenses or other problems later on. So, never skip the aforementioned phase because you never know. Whenever you are looking at a building without an elevator, realtors may tell you that the addition of an elevator is under progress and it will be built soon. Don't trust them. The same goes for additional balconies. These facilities require building permits, hetere bniya. It is very easy to make sure about this through your municipality. If indeed there is a permit, you need to check its expiration date. If there are no permits, consider that obtaining one is a long and expensive process. Moreover, you need the approval of almost all the tenants in the building, and this is not always easy to obtain. So before making a purchase, it is essential to check the status of the property. The following two stories are about two customers of mine who unfortunately contacted me only after signing a deal, and there was not much they could do to turn back. The former purchased a last-floor apartment, where the previous owner built an extension on the roof. The owner told my customer that 90% of the extra structure was built under proper permits, and only a small section was abusive. After I checked the documents in the area, I discovered that exactly the opposite was true, and even worse, the extra constructions were too large to ask for all permits later. So this person is going to face the possibility of further taxation on the property because of the appreciation in value after the add-on construction. The taxes could reach thousands of shekels. It would have been better for him to contact me before signing the contract. He could have chosen either not to buy the flat or at least negotiate for a better deal. Another story, probably even more sad, is about a guy who bought a ground floor flat in a building where all the above flats had added 2 rooms, about 30 square meters, some years ago. The owner told him that he wasn't interested in enlarging the flat, although there was permission, and the expansion could have been carried out at any moment, aligning the expansion with the flat above. From my research at the municipality at the area, I found out that the construction permission, the heter bniya, goes back 12 years and expired 9 years ago. Since a very long time has passed, the permission is not renewable, and all have to start from the beginning. This means that my client have to wait at least 1 year before expanding his flat where he is currently living. He will be forced either to move out of the flat during the works or leave the house. And on the top of it, there are the administration fees for the paperwork. And the other owners in the building are claiming money from him for using the structure they had already built 12 years ago. So my suggestion is not to rush in these things. It's always better to contact competent people such as lawyers, architects, appraisers that can verify details for the property. Even more, I suggest verifying the possibility of any future expansion. For example, if there were any unused building rights. This case could raise the value of the property, so it's really a good thing. Now I want to give you some more tips. It's important to check the area of the whole flat and compare it with the number of all the rooms available. Very often, flats are designed with the purpose to add extra rooms. When you visit the apartment, the seller focuses on the number of the rooms rather than on the whole area, so be aware of it. When speaking with a realtor, before going to see the apartment, ask for information such as on what floor is the flat located. One of the recent sentences real estate agents are using in Israel is, there are only 28 steps. In Hebrew, it's like this, Olim 28 madregot. Instead of actually saying that the flat is on the second floor without lift. Of course, the agent hopes that the client won't mind the steps once he will see the property, fall in love with it, and hopefully buy the flat. I will be happy to answer any question you may have, so please write your questions in the box on your right. I wait 1 minute to see if there are some questions. Okay, let's move to the next item. Buying an apartment from a general contractor. What to consider when you are going to purchase an apartment from a general contractor? First, the specification sheet. What is the technical specification sheet and why it is so important? The technical specification sheet is the document detailing all the information relevant to the apartment, such as size, general description, building materials, compliance with standards, finishing, all equipment at selling price, for example, air conditioning, heating system, kitchen. If you analyze the technical specification sheet, you can understand whether the materials and construction quality is good enough. For this reason, it's very important to have a professional, an architect or an engineer, read the specification sheet for you and give an opinion on the quality of materials, level of insulation, and so on. Likewise, it's imperative that the specification sheet shown to the buyer for first impression is also the one attached to the final contract. Don't trust the selling office if they don't want to show you this document before signing the contract. Some months ago, I gave a consulting to a couple who were interested in buying an apartment from a general contractor in Jerusalem. The selling office refused to give us a copy of the technical specification sheet, telling us that they would give it to my client only after signing the contract. That was the first time it occurs me, and it's really worrying. In case like that, I suggest to give up the apartment and to look for more honest sellers. Choosing an apartment off plan. Insist on seeing plans according to scale with marked measurements and do not rely on an attractive and colorful sales plan. You have to look for the following things. Room size. The size of the room always looks bigger on the sales plan than in reality, so check measurements. Check if the apartment is immediately below the roof. If so, check the specification sheet for type and thickness of thermal insulation to be used. The roof is the principal source for heat in the summer and cold in the winter. Check if the apartment exposure is good enough according to what we saw before. Ask an architect to help you verifying the precise measurements and proportions and if the apartment is suitable to your requirements. Let's talk about changes. What happens if you want to make some changes in the plans? Every change costs money. The contractor will charge you for any change to the original plan. For example, moving and tearing down walls, even virtual ones, changes to electricity and water spots, adding an air conditioning system, and so on. So what you can do? Agree on the cost for each agree on the cost for each change prior to signing the contract to avoid unpleasant surprises at a later stage. It is advisable to meet the contractor with the final architectural plan already in hand. selecting materials, sanitary appliances, and kitchen. The contract generally permits you to choose flooring, tiles, sanitary appliances, sometimes a kitchen, from a selection of suppliers. These suppliers hold a list of standard materials which you can choose from at no additional cost. Usually the buyer is allowed to upgrade the materials by paying the difference in price, sometimes even to receive credit from the contractor and make the purchase elsewhere. But you must know that generally for any change or upgrade, you will also be charged by the contractor in addition to the extra charge in the supply shop. So, prior to signing a contract, check out which suppliers the contractor works with. It is worthwhile paying a visit to their shops to see whether you like what they have on their standard lists. Inquire about the amount of credit you will get should you decide to make a purchase from another supplier. And require from the contractor a written and signed document with all the additional costs he will charge for any change. This document is very important and is called in Hebrew Mechiron Shinui Dayarim. The show apartment. Usually in every new project you can see a show apartment. In Hebrew, Dira Ledugma. This show apartment is always wonderful, with luxurious appliances. Do not rely on what you see in the show apartment that the contractor show you. It is likely that many of the materials and accessories it features are upgraded from the standard. Ask to see examples of the actual windows and doors, and ask if all what you see is included in the standard list or not. It would be really sad to discover after buying the apartment that to have a similar quality you had to add a lot of money. So check it before. Moreover, you have to know that if you want to add decorative niche or lowering the ceiling to insert decorative lighting, or you would like to paint the walls in various colors and not in white, you will be extra charged by the contractor. So I suggest you to ask for a price quote from different contractors and maybe making the works after receiving the keys. Okay, we have arrived at the end of my presentation. In this presentation we have seen where to look for an apartment to buy, how to deal with real estate agents. We focused on the best exposures in Israel and on architectural solutions to improve insulation in apartments. We talked about important things to check in the municipality in the area before signing the contract. Last, we saw important issues for buying an apartment in construction from a general contractor. Please, if you have any question, this is the moment to write them in your chat box on the right. You can write me now. Okay, if you write me during the time you write me the questions, I want to tell you something interesting. We will meet again in 2 weeks. And we will talk about renovating without wasting precious time and money, and how to choose the right workers and which common mistake to avoid. I will send you by email the link to the webinar, so it would be nice if you will come to the next webinar too. Sylvie is asking me fee for your services. Okay, it depends. I can't give you prices here, because the prices varies from the different types of works. So you can write me an email and give me more precise information. I will be happy to answer you. Belinda is asking, I missed the first few minutes. Could you please send me the first few slides? I'm sending the recording to everybody, so don't worry. This evening or tomorrow morning, I will send you by email the recording, so everything will be there. You're welcome. And if you have more questions, you can contact me by email and ask me questions by email, and I will be happy to answer you. So thank you for listening, and hope to see you soon here in Jerusalem. Email. Okay. You have to see it in the slide. Just a moment. Okay, I write the email here in the chat and should be in the last slide. Yes, it is in the last slide, and I also can write it here. Just a moment. so you can copy and paste it. Could you please write me if you are already in Israel or you still live abroad, and where do you come from? If everybody, if you can write me, I'm curious to see. In Israel, from Canada. Okay, and the other? Ah, already in Jerusalem, already in Israel. Oh, great. Okay, in 2 months, I will send you an invitation. I'm making a workshop with with a colleague, and about renovating. It's called Mothers Build Green, and I will send you the invitation. It will be here in Jerusalem in the beginning of May. So if you live in Jerusalem, I think it will be interesting for you to come. Okay, so for today it's all. I will send you the recording later or tomorrow morning. Thank you for listening to me, and see you soon. Bye bye. Good night.